In today's story, an elderly woman walks into a restaurant and gets thrown out by the manager. They said she looked homeless, that she couldn't afford to eat there, that she was bad for business. But 30 minutes later, when a soldier in full uniform walked through that door, the manager realized he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. This is a story about sacrifice, about respect, and about why you should never judge a mother who's waiting for her son to come home from war. Stay until the end. What that soldier does, unforgettable. Dorothy Martinez was 71 years old, and today was the most important day she'd had in 18 months, because today her son was coming home. Captain Michael Martinez, United States Army, 2 tours in Afghanistan, 18 months deployed, and finally, he was coming home. Dorothy had been counting down the days for months. She lived alone in a small apartment in San Antonio. Her husband, Michael's father, had passed away 12 years ago. Heart attack, sudden. After that, it had just been her and Michael. She'd raised him by herself, worked 2 jobs to put food on the table, made sure he graduated high school, encouraged him when he decided to enlist. "I want to serve my country, Mom," he'd said at 18, like Grandpa did. Dorothy's father had been a Marine in Vietnam, came home with medals and scars he never talked about. "Then you serve," Dorothy had told her son, "and you serve with honor." Michael had done exactly that. 16 years in the Army, multiple deployments, commendations, Purple Heart after he'd been injured saving 3 soldiers from an IED explosion. He'd called Dorothy every week when he could, sent letters when he couldn't, and every night Dorothy prayed for him to come home safe. Today, that prayer had been answered. Michael's flight was landing at 6:30 p.m., and Dorothy had made a plan. She'd saved money for months, a little bit from each Social Security check, skipped meals, cut back on everything, because she wanted to take her son to dinner at Romano's, a nice Italian restaurant downtown, the kind of place they'd never been able to afford when he was growing up. She wanted to celebrate, to tell him how proud she was to have one perfect evening before he went back to regular life. At 5:45 p.m., Dorothy took a bus to Romano's. She wore her best dress, a simple navy blue one she'd owned for 15 years. She carried an old purse, wore sensible shoes. She walked into the restaurant with a reservation she'd made a week ago for 2 people, 7 p.m., Martinez. But she was early, because she wanted everything to be perfect. She had no idea what was about to happen. Romano's was upscale. White tablecloths, candles, soft music, well-dressed clientele. The kind of place where the cheapest entree was $35. When Dorothy walked in, the hostess, a young woman named Amber, looked up from her podium. Her smile faltered when she saw Dorothy. "Can I help you?" Amber asked, her tone cautious. "Yes, I have a reservation," Dorothy said warmly. "Martinez, for 7 o'clock, but I'm a bit early. I was hoping I could wait here for my son." Amber checked her computer. "I see the reservation, but ma'am, our policy is that we can only seat complete parties." "Oh, that's fine," Dorothy said. "Could I wait in the bar area? I don't mind." Amber hesitated. "Actually, let me get the manager." She disappeared into the back. Dorothy stood near the entrance, feeling slightly uncomfortable as other guests walked past her. A few gave her odd looks. She knew she didn't look like she belonged here, but that was okay. She was here for Michael. A man in his 30s emerged from the back office. His name was Blake Sutton, general manager. Slicked back hair, expensive suit, an expression that suggested he thought very highly of himself. "Ma'am," Blake said, not offering his hand, "I'm Blake Sutton, the manager. I understand you have a reservation?" "Yes, sir, at 7, but I wanted to come early to make sure everything was ready for my son. He's—" "I'm sorry," Blake interrupted, "but I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." Dorothy blinked.
A misunderstanding? Blake glanced around, lowering his voice. This is a fine dining establishment. We have a certain clientele, a certain standard. Dorothy's smile faded. I don't understand. Blake's expression hardened. Ma'am, I don't think this is the right restaurant for you. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the chain restaurants on the highway. But I have a reservation, Dorothy said, confused. I called a week ago. I confirmed yesterday. Be that as it may, Blake said, I reserve the right to refuse service, and I'm exercising that right now. Dorothy felt like she'd been slapped. Why? What did I do wrong? Blake looked pointedly at her worn dress, her old purse, her modest appearance. You don't fit our establishment's image, he said bluntly. We cater to a certain type of customer, and frankly, you are not it. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. My son is coming home from Afghanistan. He's been deployed for 18 months. I saved money to bring him here. I just wanted one nice dinner. I'm sure you did, Blake said, his tone dripping with condescension. But this isn't the place. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Please, Dorothy said, her voice breaking. Just let me wait for him. He'll be here in an hour. Ma'am, if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to call security. Other diners were watching now. Some looked uncomfortable. Others whispered to each other. Dorothy stood there, humiliated and heartbroken. Please, she whispered one more time. Security, Blake called out. A large man in a suit appeared. Escort this woman out, Blake said. Dorothy's tears were falling freely now. I just wanted to celebrate with my son. You should have chosen a restaurant you could actually afford, Blake said coldly. The security guard took Dorothy gently by the arm. Ma'am, let's go. Dorothy allowed herself to be led toward the door, crying quietly. As she passed the tables, one woman, in her 60s, well-dressed, spoke up. This is disgraceful. You should be ashamed of yourself. Blake ignored her. Dorothy was walked out the front door onto the sidewalk. The security guard looked apologetic. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just doing my job. Dorothy nodded, unable to speak. She stood on the sidewalk, crying, her perfect evening destroyed.
Dorothy sat on a bench outside the restaurant. She didn't know what to do. Michael's flight would land in 45 minutes. He'd text her when he landed, come straight to the restaurant like they'd planned. But now there was no reservation, and Dorothy had no backup plan. She pulled out her flip phone, the same one she'd had for 10 years, and tried to find another restaurant nearby that might have availability. But she didn't know how to search on her phone. She wasn't good with technology. Tears kept falling. All that planning, all that saving, all that excitement, ruined. Inside the restaurant, the well-dressed woman who'd spoken up earlier approached Blake. Her name was Catherine Montgomery. She was a regular customer, wealthy, influential. What you just did was disgusting, Catherine said to Blake. Blake maintained his professional smile. I was protecting the ambiance of the restaurant, Mrs. Montgomery. You humiliated an elderly woman whose son is serving our country, Catherine said. Don't try to justify it. With all due respect, Blake said, not everyone who claims to have a soldier son is telling the truth. People make up stories to get sympathy. Catherine's eyes narrowed. So you assumed she was lying. I assumed she didn't belong here, Blake said, and I stand by that decision. Catherine pulled out her phone. I'm calling my husband. He's on the board that owns this restaurant chain. We'll see how long you keep this job. Blake's smile faltered. Mrs. Montgomery, there's no need. There's every need, Catherine said. What you did was cruel, and I won't stand for it.
She walked away, already dialing. Blake watched her go, his jaw tight. Amber, the hostess, approached him. "Blake, that old lady seemed really nice. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Blake snapped. "Get back to your station." Amber retreated, looking troubled. Outside, Dorothy checked her phone. A text from Michael. "Landed early, on my way to the restaurant. Can't wait to see you, Mom. Mom." Dorothy's heart broke all over again. She had to tell him, had to explain. She started typing a response with shaking hands, and then she heard a voice. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Dorothy looked up. A younger woman, maybe 30, stood there with a bag of takeout. "I saw what happened in there. I work across the street. That was awful." Dorothy wiped her eyes. "I'm fine, thank you." "You're not fine," the woman said gently. "Look, there's a great Mexican place 2 blocks down, family-owned, wonderful food. I can walk you there if you want." Dorothy smiled weakly. "That's very kind, but my son is expecting Romanos. I made such a big deal about it. I wanted it to be special." The woman's expression softened. "Your son is military?" Dorothy nodded. "Army. Just got back from Afghanistan." "Then he doesn't care where you eat. He cares about seeing you." Dorothy knew she was right, but it still hurt. "Come on," the woman said. "Let me help you up. We'll get you to Rosa's. It's perfect, and I'll even buy your first round of margaritas." Dorothy was about to accept when she heard something. The roar of a motorcycle. Both women turned. A figure on a motorcycle was pulling into the parking lot. As he got closer, Dorothy's breath caught. Military uniform, combat boots, a duffel bag strapped to the back of the bike. The rider removed his helmet. Dark hair, strong jawline, eyes that had seen too much. Captain Michael Martinez. "Mom?" he called out, spotting her on the bench. Dorothy stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Michael," she whispered. He ran to her and wrapped her in his arms. Dorothy sobbed into his shoulder. "You're home. You're really home." "I'm home, Mom," Michael said, his own voice thick. "I'm home, Mom." They stood there for a long moment, holding each other. The young woman who'd offered to help quietly slipped away, smiling. Finally, Michael pulled back and looked at his mother. "Why are you crying?" he asked gently. "And why are you outside?" Dorothy wiped her eyes. I had a reservation inside for us, but they said I couldn't wait. They made me leave." Michael's
flashback, 18 months earlier. Before Michael left for his last deployment, he'd sat with his mother at her small kitchen table. "Mom, I set up an account for you," he'd said. "Military pay goes in every month. I want you to use it. Fix the car, get new clothes, take care of yourself." "I don't need your money," Dorothy had said. "You save it for when you get back." "Mom." "No," Dorothy said firmly. "You're the one risking your life. The least I can do is take care of myself while you're gone. You save that money. Buy yourself something nice when you come home." Michael had tried to argue, but he knew his mother. Stubborn, proud, self-sacrificing. "At least promise me one thing," Michael had said. "What?" "When I get back, we go out to dinner. Somewhere nice. My treat. Deal?" Dorothy had smiled. "Deal." Michael had hugged her. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, baby. You come home safe." Michael walked through the doors of Romano's. Every head in the restaurant turned. There's something about a soldier in uniform that commands attention. Respect, authority, sacrifice. Blake was near the hostess stand when he saw Michael. For a moment, he looked uncertain. Then he put on his professional smile. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Romano's. Do you have a reservation?" Michael walked up to him. "Are you the manager?" "I am. Blake Sutton.
How can I help you? You kicked out an elderly woman about 20 minutes ago. Why? Blake's smile faltered. I'm sorry, I don't discuss other customers. That was my mother, Michael said, his voice hard. Blake went pale. She made a reservation a week ago. She saved money for months to bring me here. She wanted to celebrate me coming home from Afghanistan. The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every diner was watching. And you threw her out, Michael said. You told her she didn't fit your image. Blake's mouth opened and closed. Sir, there must have been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. My mother was standing right there.
She heard what you said. She told me everything. He took a step closer. Do you know what she was doing while I was deployed? She was working as a housekeeper at a hotel, 68 years old, cleaning toilets so she could save money to take her son to dinner. Blake's face was bright red. She sent me care packages every month, Michael continued, wrote me letters every week, prayed for me every night. She is the strongest, kindest, most selfless person I've ever known. His voice rose. And you treated her like garbage. Dorothy had followed Michael inside. She stood near the door, tears streaming down her face. Michael turned to the restaurant. My mother raised me by herself after my father died. She worked 2 jobs. She sacrificed everything to give me a good life. And when I enlisted, she supported me, even though it terrified her. He gestured toward her. That woman right there is a Gold Star wife. She lost her husband. She's raised a son in the military for 16 years. She's lived through 2 wars worrying about me. Michael turned back to Blake. And you judged her by her clothes. Blake's sweating now. Sir, I sincerely apologize. I made a terrible mistake. Yeah, you did, Michael said. You want to know what the mistake was? Blake waited. You forgot that character has nothing to do with money, Michael said. You forgot that the people who serve this country and the people who raise them deserve respect. You forgot basic human decency. He stepped even closer. My mother has more class in her little finger than you have in your entire body. The restaurant erupted in applause. People stood up, clapping, some crying. Blake stood there, destroyed. Catherine Montgomery approached. Captain Martinez, I'm Catherine Montgomery. I witnessed what happened to your mother, and I want you to know I've already contacted the ownership group. This man will be fired. No, Michael said. Everyone looked at him, surprised. Don't fire him, Michael continued. Make him take sensitivity training. Make him volunteer at a veterans center. Make him learn what service and sacrifice actually mean. He looked at Blake. And if I ever hear of you treating anyone like this again, I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. Understood? Blake nodded vigorously. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Thank you, sir. Michael turned to his mother. Come on, Mom. Let's get out of here. Wait, Blake said desperately. Please, let me make this right. Dinner is on the house. The best table. Anything you want. Michael looked at his mother. Dorothy shook her head. I don't want to eat here. Neither do I, Michael said. They started to leave. But then Catherine spoke up. Captain Martinez, if I may? Michael turned. My husband and I own a restaurant 2 blocks from here, Bella Notte. It's Italian, family-owned, and it would be an honor if you and your mother would be our guests tonight. Michael looked at his mother. Dorothy smiled through her tears. That would be lovely.
At Bella Notte, the owner, a warm Italian man named Marco, greeted them personally. Mrs. Montgomery called ahead, Marco said. She told me everything. Please, come in. The best table in the house. He led them to a quiet corner table with a view of the city. As they sat down, other diners recognized Michael's uniform. One by one, they approached. Thank you for your service. Welcome home, soldier. God bless you. Michael thanked each one. Dorothy watched her son with tears in her eyes. When they were finally alone, Michael reached across the table and took his mother's hand. I'm sorry about tonight, he said. You have nothing to apologize for, Dorothy said. I'm sorry you had to go through that,
Michael clarified. "You deserve better." "I have better," Dorothy said, squeezing his hand. "I have you, home, safe. That's all I ever wanted." Michael's eyes glistened. "I missed you so much, Mom." "I missed you too, baby." They ordered food, real Italian food, made with love by Marco's family. And for the first time in 18 months, they sat together, talking, laughing, crying, being a family again. Halfway through dinner, Marco brought out a special dessert. "Tiramisu," he said, "made by my wife, on the house." "You've already done too much," Michael said. No, you have done too much, for all of us. This is the least we can do." He paused. "My son is in the Navy, deployed in the Pacific. I know what your mother goes through. Every day my wife worries. Every day she prays." He looked at Dorothy. "You are a military mother. That is a service too. Thank you." Dorothy started crying again. Marco patted Michael's shoulder and left them alone. After dinner, as they were leaving Bellanote, Dorothy's phone rang. It was Catherine Montgomery. "Mrs. Martinez, this is Catherine. I wanted to update you on what happened at Romano's." "Oh, you don't need to," Dorothy began. "Blake Sutton has been terminated, effective immediately. The corporate office reviewed security footage and were appalled. They've also implemented new training for all locations." Dorothy was silent. "But there's something else," Catherine continued. "I did some research. Your son is Captain Michael Martinez, correct?" "Yes," Dorothy said. "He received a Purple Heart 2 years ago for actions in Kandahar. He saved 3 soldiers' lives while injured." "He did," Dorothy said quietly. "And before that, he received a Bronze Star for valor." Dorothy's voice was thick with emotion. "He's a good man." "He's a hero," Catherine corrected, "and so are you for raising him. Mrs. Montgomery, my husband and I would like to do something. We'd like to establish a scholarship at the local university in your name, the Dorothy Martinez Scholarship for Military Families." Dorothy gasped. "What? No, I couldn't." "Please," Catherine said, "let us do this. You've given your son to this country for 16 years. You've sacrificed. You've served. You deserve to be honored." Dorothy was crying too hard to speak. Michael took the phone. "Mrs. Montgomery, that's incredibly generous, but my mother—" "Your mother is one of the strongest women I've ever encountered," Catherine interrupted. "Even in humiliation, she was gracious. Even in pain, she was kind. That's the kind of character we want to honor." Michael looked at his mother. "Please accept," Catherine said, "for the families who will benefit from it." Michael nodded. "We accept. Thank you." He hung up and told his mother everything. Dorothy sobbed. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do," Michael said fiercely. "You deserve this and so much more." He pulled her into a hug. "You're my hero, Mom. You always have been." 3 months later. The Dorothy Martinez Scholarship was officially announced at a ceremony at the university. Michael stood on stage in his dress uniform. Dorothy sat in the front row, overwhelmed. "This scholarship," Michael said into the microphone, "is for the families who serve alongside their soldiers, the mothers who wait, the spouses who hold down the home front, the children who grow up with a parent deployed." He looked at his mother. Military service isn't just the person in uniform. It's everyone who loves them, everyone who supports them, everyone who prays for them to come home. His voice broke. "My mother gave up everything to raise me. She worked herself to exhaustion. She worried herself sick, and she never, ever complained." The audience was crying.
So this scholarship, Michael continued, is for people like her, people who sacrifice in silence, people who deserve to be seen, to be honored, to be respected. He stepped away from the microphone and walked to his mother. He knelt in front of her and took her hands. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." Dorothy cupped his face. "I'm so proud of you, baby." "I'm proud of you too," Michael said. 1 year later, the first Dorothy Martinez Scholarship was awarded to a young woman whose father had been killed in Iraq when she was 10. She'd been raised by her mother, a Gold Star widow who'd worked 3 jobs to support her. At the ceremony, the young woman met Dorothy. "Thank you," the young woman said, crying. "Because of you, I can go to college. I can make my dad proud." Dorothy hugged her. "You already make him proud, sweetheart, just by being who you are." As Dorothy watched the young woman walk across the stage to receive her scholarship, she thought about that night at Romano's, about the manager who judged her, about the humiliation she'd felt, and about her son who'd stood up for her with such strength and grace. That terrible moment had become something beautiful. It had become a way to help others, and that, Dorothy realized, was the best revenge of all. Not anger, not bitterness, but grace and service and love. Blake Sutton never worked in the restaurant industry again. Word spread about what he'd done, and no one wanted to hire someone who'd humiliated a military mother. He eventually found work in a different field, and every Veterans Day he volunteered at the local VA hospital, trying in his own way to make amends. As for Michael, he retired from the Army 3 years later with the rank of major. He moved back to San Antonio to be near his mother, and every week, without fail, they had dinner together. Sometimes at Bella Notte, where Marco always greeted them like family. Sometimes at small diners. Sometimes at Dorothy's apartment, where she made his favorite childhood meals. It didn't matter where. What mattered was being together, because they both understood something important, that the people who serve our country deserve respect, and the people who raise them deserve it even more. That's a lesson Blake Sutton learned the hard way, and it's a lesson we should all remember. Before we judge someone by their appearance, before we dismiss someone because they don't look wealthy, before we forget that character has nothing to do with clothes. Dorothy Martinez taught us that, not with words, but with grace and dignity and a mother's love that never, ever quit. Never judge a mother who's waiting for her soldier to come home, because the person you dismiss today might be the strongest person you'll ever meet. Military families sacrifice too. They serve too. They deserve respect too. That's what this story teaches us, and that's what we should never forget.